Please stand for the presentation of colors.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket anchor, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, see, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to introduce you to my 14-year-old daughter, Jaden. Thank you. At this time, I want to introduce a very special guest. Justin Constantine is a Marine officer who volunteered for deployment to Iraq in 2006. He served as a civil affairs team leader while attached to an infantry battalion. While on a routine combat patrol, Justin was shot in the head by a sniper. Although the original prognosis was that he had been killed in action, he miraculously survived. Through teamwork and a positive mental attitude, he has had a remarkable recovery. His personal awards from his time in Iraq include the Purple Heart, the Combat Action Ribbon, and the Navy Marine Corps' Commendation Medal. Based on his successful and continued advocacy for veterans, In 2012, the Virginia legislature passed a commending resolution highlighting Justin's continued support of veterans and other wounded warriors. Justin has also received significant recognition from the White House, the Commonwealth of Virginia, the Washington Redskins, and James Madison University. At the 2013 All-American Inaugural Ball, Justin was presented with an All-American Hero Award. Justin recently started his own business as an inspirational speaker, which is his true passion. He has spoken at numerous corporate, educational, and military events about leadership, the upside of change, teamwork, and community values in overcoming adversity. Justin is a senior advisor at the United States Chamber of Commerce in connection with their Hiring Our Heroes campaign. He also serves on the board of directors for the Wounded Warrior Project. Justin works with numerous corporations on their veteran hiring initiatives. He has been featured in magazines and programs such as CNN, Fox News, Men's Health, the Huffington Post, The Atlantic, Financial Times, and the Department of Labor's America's Heroes at Work Success Stories. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce a real-life superhero, Justin Constantine.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that generous introduction. I'm very excited to be here, but I have to admit I'm a little nervous. I've gone to plenty of corporate events, but never anything like this. Never Nemesis being destroyed at the end, never record-breaking events. So this is a real thrill and treat for me to be here. I met Wayne last year at Blackstone's annual CEO conference in New York. And then I met Derek more recently at President Bush's Warrior Open Golf Tournament for Wounded Warriors. And I met several others who are here as well. I was especially proud of the Quinta at the Chamber of Commerce's gala in November when you won the award for your military spouse hiring program. And then more proud, just last month at President Bush's event, a number of us were there. I think you saw the clip where President Bush kept naming La Quinta over and over as the example for military veteran and spouse hiring. So I was proud of that, even though I don't work for you guys. Yeah, I'm part of the family though now. I'm in the record books. But you all should be really proud of what the Quinta's doing with the goals you're setting for your veteran and military spouse hiring. I believe it's 425 hourly positions this year and 16 career positions. From talking with Teresa, I understand you're well on your way to blasting through that goal this year, and it might be as high as 500 by the end of 2014. That's a really big number. As a veteran, trust me, that means a lot to our community that you're really pushing for us. So thank you for that. Sure. But as leaders at La Quinta, I hope you realize the power you have to really positively influence and change the lives of those who you hire and then work with. And if it's true that with great power comes great responsibility, and all of you have that power to a certain degree as managers, you have to ask yourselves, what are you doing with that great responsibility every day for La Quinta and for your employees? Are you doing everything you can to be the best possible leader? It's important to keep that in mind because at La Quinta, you pride yourselves on your dedicated staff and your affordable housing units. And as well you should. I looked on Facebook, I think yesterday, you had 82,380 followers. Now you have one more because I'm following you now too, so I'm going to be keeping up to date on you guys. But that's very impressive. People like La Quinta. People appreciate La Quinta. But remember, it all starts with each one of you. That being said, you may be wondering, why am I up here in front of you? Why am I talking to you today? I can't see out of my left eye, so I'm probably gonna, no offense to you guys, I'm gonna stay away from this part of the stage. I can't see out of my left eye. I'm missing most of my teeth and the end of my tongue. I had difficulty running because the doctors took bones out of my lower legs to reconstruct my upper and lower jaw. As you can tell, I can't speak perfectly clearly, and I suffer from post-traumatic stress and a traumatic brain injury. But you know what? I'm the luckiest person in this whole room. Because of the injury that caused these problems, I'm now far closer with my wife Dahlia than I ever would have imagined. And I know I'm far stronger than I ever would have thought possible. And I can now put all our problems in their proper perspective, so I can focus on what's truly important to Dahlia and me. Winston Churchill once said, never, never, never give up. And I try to firmly embrace that philosophy during my recovery. But it applies to each one of you as well. None of you can ever give up on your employees. None of you can ever stop motivating them. And none of you can ever stop ensuring that everyone in your organization understands the corporate mission, where they fit into it, and why they're valuable to you. Now, starting from my very first days at Officer Candidate School, you recognize that picture, the Marine Corps has pounded in my head a number of lessons over and over about the right way to take care of people that we are privileged to lead. And especially in today's business climate, where it's getting easier for your really top performers to find other opportunities out there, where constant communication means that your employees know what it's like in other offices. And the growing movement among employees where they're no longer solely motivated by money, taking care of your people has to be your number one priority. And I already know that's something that's very important to La Quinta. But in any discussion about leadership, we have to start with the premise that it's not just about effective management, but that a great leader puts his or her employees' needs first and empowers them to operate at their highest level. This will truly affect their loyalty, which of course will affect their customer service, which is very important to you, and your profits will ultimately come from there. And take a second to think about it. Wayne and I have talked about this. How many of you or your employees have La Quinta Inn and Suites permanently branded on your skin? I know Wayne doesn't. I don't think Derek does, and probably none of you do. But if you roll up the sleeve of a Marine, chances are you're going to see Semper Fi or USMC tattooed somewhere on his arm or his back or his shoulder. That tattoo signifies pride, identity, and allegiance. It's really hard to recreate anywhere else. Imagine the dedication and loyalty it must take to do that. That's a big tattoo right there. But that tattoo is a big part of the leadership ethos of the Marine Corps. Semper Fi is known around our country from coast to coast, and really people around the world are familiar with it as well. It means always faithful, and it reflects a mindset shared by all Marines. Think about how powerful those two words are. They don't mean sometimes faithful, or faithful when it's convenient, or faithful when you feel like it. It's a complete commitment to the mission, a two-way street that runs up and down the entire length of the organization. For us, Semper Fi means putting your life on the line for that Marine to your left or to your right, and I know a little bit about that. I joined the Marine Corps after my second year of law school, but when I deployed to Iraq, it wasn't in the role of a civil affairs team leader. In the Marine Corps, all the officers learn the basics of many different positions. So I had the opportunity to volunteer, as Wayne said, as a civil affairs team leader. In that capacity, I had the honor of leading a small team of 8 Marines that we were attached to a Marine infantry unit out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. In Iraq, we were stationed in Al Anbar province between the two towns some of you may have heard of, Fallujah and Ramadi. This is a picture of our team. And I know, I'm waiting for the hands, because I know you're going to have the same question everyone else does. What is Brad Pitt doing here in Justin's picture? But that's just some other really, really good-looking guys. That's not actually Brad Pitt. But I had the honor of leading these Marines. And as a civil affairs team leader, I was tasked with developing contacts and contracts with the local Iraqi population to help rebuild the destroyed infrastructure that's necessary for any functioning city. Things like electricity that actually worked more than 4 hours a day, clean running water, drivable roads, and well-needed schools. As some of you may remember, however, the fall of 2006 was an extremely volatile time for the Marine Corps in Iraq. The insurgency was at its most powerful level, and convincing the local Iraqis to work with us was virtually impossible because they would be visited at night with very real death threats from the insurgents. That being said, I will always look back on my time in the Marine Corps in Iraq as a highlight of my career. Not many lawyers get the opportunity to lead Marines in a combat environment, and I learned a lot about myself and effective leadership while I was there. As Marines, one of the things, we do many things very well, but one thing in particular is that we take care of each other. And I think that's something that's very important to you as well. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the Marines around me that day, as well as an amazing Navy corpsman. And because I worked closely with our battalion commander, he put me on what he called his jump team, which was comprised of about a dozen of us who worked closely together. We went out across the wire, which means combat patrols in enemy territory, about 4 or 5 times per week. Often we went to our forward operating bases, or FOBs as we called them. And this is a picture of one of our FOBs. This was a house there, a nice house. We actually bought the house from the people who lived there, and we took it over. You can see how we've put sandbags across the top to protect from mortar and sniper attacks. And we have Marines at these FOBs, and we typically went out to them so the colonel could check on his Marines, make sure their morale was high, make sure they were getting the food they needed, make sure they were gathering the intel that we needed for all the effort. We were actually near this FOB on October 18, 2006, and we got to an area where we knew an enemy sniper had been operating because he had already killed a few of our Marines. But of course, that wasn't going to get in the way of our mission. We actually had a reporter with us that day, and he and others have reiterated to me what happened because I don't remember most of it. I know that we stopped by an Iraqi police station that morning that had been shot up the night before by the insurgents because the colonel wanted to talk to their police chief how to better defend their position. Then we stopped by another one of our FOBs. This was actually just an overpass in a strategic part of the highway system. And I was always nervous when we went there because it wasn't protected. Everyone knew we were there. You could tell something was going to happen one day. I guess at that time I noticed the reporter who was with us was kind of just standing around stiff and not moving, which is, as you can imagine, something you should be doing if you know there's a sniper around. Well, we were riding in the same vehicle, and as we got to the next FOB and got out and started walking away from the Humvee, I said to him, "Hey Jay, don't forget to move quicker here. I noticed you weren't walking around. We don't want you to get injured, so keep moving." He nodded and told me that based on what I said, he took a big step forward. And a split second later, a bullet came in right where his head had been, and it hit the wall between us. Before I could react, the next round came in and hit me behind my left ear and exploded out of my face, causing catastrophic damage, as you can imagine, along the way. And in fact, the Marines around me, when the Navy corpsman came running over, the Marines around me said, "Don't worry about the major, he's dead." Thank God George didn't listen to him, or I wouldn't be here today. This next picture I'm going to show you is somewhat graphic. It's from a week after that when I was on the operating table at the military hospital in Bethesda. I'd already had several surgeries, so what the corpsman was looking at was actually a lot worse at the time. Corpsman George Grant is an amazing young man. Even though blood was pouring out of my face and what was left of my skull, he somehow was able to provide rescue breathing on me and then cut open my throat and performed an emergency tracheotomy right there so I wouldn't drown in my own blood. In the face of overwhelming adversity and with complete disregard for his own life, George was able to focus solely on me and keeping me alive. In fact, despite all that was going on around him, including the fact the sniper was trying to shoot whoever he could, In fact, he did shoot the Marine behind me as well. And this wasn't a nice, clean hospital room. This is a battlefield. There was dirt, and rocks, and stones, and dust everywhere. George was wearing 65 pounds of protective armor like we all were that summer. And of course, he was sweating like crazy because, as it was every day, we were there over 100 degrees. Despite all that, George did such a perfect job on my tracheotomy that my plastic surgeon, Bethesda, told me he thought another surgeon had performed it. Now keep in mind that George had never performed this operation on a human being before. He had performed it once before, about 9 months before that, in a controlled training environment at Camp Pendleton, California for corpsmen. He had done that surgery on a pig. So I don't know what it says about me, but you know, I'm glad that he took care of that pig. I'm really glad that he took care of me that day. I'm obviously a huge fan of George. He saved my life. He's my personal hero. I'd love to brag about him. So I'm going to show you a picture. It's actually two pictures pushed into one. And the one on the left, this was from early on. I obviously came back from Iraq much earlier than I wanted to. The rest of the infantry battalion came back about 5 months later. When Dahlia and I heard they were coming back, we got in our car in Virginia, drove down to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, so we could be there with the families when the battalion came back. And it was really awesome. It was like a movie where we were all there. We had a couple big tents, food. We were excited. A couple hundred people there. You could see the Greyhound buses coming to the base. Of course, Marines were hanging out the windows. They may or may not have been drinking beer on that part of the trip. And so I was there. And you can imagine the first person who I went up to and gave a big hug to and said, thank you. You know, thank you for saving my life. George. Yeah. George is an amazing guy. You can see in this picture, this is early on. This was, you know, I was shot in October 2006. This is early 2007. I still had a trait collar on because it took a long time to recover from that. You can see George, he looks tired here. He has a 1,000-yard stare. He's been in Iraq for 7 months. Yeah, he has saved me, and he has saved a number of other Marines, but there are a couple good handfuls of Marines he couldn't save. And that weighed heavily on George's mind, and in fact still does to this day, and I'm working with him on that now. This picture is from last year, so about 5 or 6 years later, we were together at a Wounded Warrior event down in Florida. And I really like this picture because you can see how far we've both come since we got back from Iraq. And I just love seeing the progression. I love bragging about George. So thank you. Thank you. The problem is, now my sister-in-law wants to go out with him, so I have to keep an eye on that. But when I was shot, the battalion commander, Colonel Todd DeGrosse, he's from Newport, Rhode Island, he was faced with a tough decision. Should he call in a medical evacuation, but not really knowing how long it would take for that helicopter to get there because of competing interests all over the battlefield, or should he risk a roadside bomb and have someone drive me to the aid station in an effort to stabilize me? Well, he chose Lance Corporal Bueller to drive me to the aid station. He told him to drive me as fast as he could. Here in the States, driving 70 miles an hour is not a big deal. We do it all the time. However, in Iraq at that point, those roadside bombs were a big deal. You hear about them in Afghanistan now, the IEDs, improvised explosive devices. They're cheap, they're easy to put in, they're very hard to detect, and they can be very powerful. In Iraq in 2006, they're a big problem for us too. We literally hit them every day. We lost a lot of Marines to those IEDs, and when you see pictures in the news of wounded warriors who are missing arms or legs or both, it's probably from an IED. But Jordan Bueller wasn't worried about those IEDs. In fact, let me show you a picture that I took of one of our vehicles that had hit an IED to give you an idea of the damage they can cause. Just like Corpsman Grant had done minutes earlier, Lance Corporal Jordan Bueller put his own life on the line for me. And I didn't know Jordan very well. I had joined that unit late. He put his own life on the line for me, drove me 70 miles per hour, even though at that point we never drove faster than 15 miles an hour, because we learned the hard way, if you hit an IED going faster than that, you dramatically increase the chances of causing the vehicle to flip end over end and probably kill everyone inside. But Jordan drove 70 miles an hour to get me to the aid station in what they call the golden hour, which is so critical after a traumatic injury. Now, I'm sure that Corman Grant and Lance Corporal Bueller didn't wake up on October 18, 2006, planning on saving my life. They just reacted to what happened in front of them based on their training and who they were at their core. Compassionate, selfless, faithful, and committed to the greater good. That's Semper Fi. Now, each one of you has any number of data clerks, first-line supervisors, and others going about their daily life at work. So you have to ask yourselves, are they as committed to La Quinta and the employees around them in the same way as George Grant and Jordan Bueller? Whatever the corporate equivalent of leave no Marine behind, do your folks all share that same vision? Does your staff feel motivated to perform beyond expectations? Share your vision of where your team and where La Quinta should be going, and feel that leadership opportunities exist for them no matter what their position. If the answer is no, then you really need to concentrate on fixing that. In the Marine Corps, we have a group of core concepts that we really focus on when it comes to leadership. I think the one that applies most to you in creating a really great working environment for your leadership and your staff can be summed up in 3 words. Officers eat last. Marine leaders prioritize the accomplishment of the mission first, the welfare of the Marines second, and their own personal needs third and last. When it's time to eat, the most junior enlisted Marines eat first, and the most senior officers eat last. And each Marine ensures that those Marines junior to them in rank eat before they do. Now, why would we do something like that? When Marines see their leaders placing their unit's needs before their own, they feel compelled to do that for others around them. And perhaps most importantly, a leader's ability to demonstrate to his Marines through actions, not words, that he truly cares for them will inspire fierce loyalty and unwavering willingness to follow. And I'll give you just a tiny example of that. In Iraq, when we were going to go on a long patrol, I was on the colonel's staff, so I would know the plan for the day for the next day. When I knew we were going to go on a tough patrol, I would get up a little bit early, at 5 o'clock or 5:30, go over to the chow hall while it was still dark, but get a cooler, somehow finagle some extra Gatorades, and put that in the back of the Humvee for my Marines. Those drinks weren't for me, they were for them. And if there was anything left over, that would be for me. My Marines knew that, though, and I never went thirsty when I was in Iraq. And I can still remember our platoon sergeant at Officer Candidate School, which would be about the equivalent for you of a mid-level manager. And he told me I would never be as close to my troops as he was because of our difference in rank. But that didn't mean that my responsibility towards them was diminished in any sense of the word. And he was exactly right. But when we deployed to Iraq, I had made every effort to learn every detail about my Marines that I could. If they were in school, where they were in school and what they were studying, what they liked and disliked, where their families were from, more about their families, their likes and dislikes, what they wanted to do after the Marine Corps, after Iraq, their political leanings, their religious views, whatever it is they wanted to talk about, I wanted to learn that. I knew I was going to have to trust them with my life, and I wanted them to know my only priorities were mission accomplishment and their safety. Now, leading by example is a core component of building that mindset of taking care of your people. It should be obvious to you that no one's going to want to follow you if they don't believe that you're willing to do the same things that you're asking of them. I made it a priority to lead my Marines on every night mission, on every patrol, and even in training up for the deployment in every aspect of that training. Now, I pushed those leadership opportunities down to a lower level when it was appropriate to help develop them as leaders, but I would never ask my Marines to do something I myself wasn't prepared to do. And the same is true in your operating stations. You don't have to be in Iraq to practice this. You can't expect your supervisors below you to know everything they should about your employees and be a true resource to them if you yourselves aren't willing to practice management by walking around and getting out there and showing your interest in your own people. In Iraq, I often worked shoulder to shoulder with my Marines, literally, despite our differences in rank and responsibility, even if the task was something as mundane as cleaning out an old warehouse. This is a picture of me with Sergeant Howard, who I really grew to lean heavily on over there in Iraq. He was a real asset for me, especially when I had to go away for a day or two at a time with a colonel out to some far area in our operating area, and I could rely on Sergeant Howard to make sure everything was done correctly. We learned a lot about each other over there, and I learned I could trust him implicitly with making sure things were done. That only came because we had a chance to work together and got to know each other. You can't expect your employees to treat your customers with the highest level of respect if you aren't doing the same thing for them. And you can't expect your staff to live and breathe your vision of where you want your team to go if you aren't pushing that message to them through many different channels. In the Marine Corps, we view leading Marines as a privilege, not a right, that has to be earned every day. And I think the same thing is true for you. Now, I know that I will never be the Marine I once was, and that my career as a trial attorney is now over, and that I'm going to have problems eating and drinking and remembering things and concentrating and running, and you can go on and on for the rest of my life. But I really enjoy what I do for a living now. I enjoy working on cases like this, and I know that my mentors always have my back. I'm excited to do this work. I'm excited to share what I've learned about overcoming adversity, and I enjoy being a positive influence on others around me. Imagine if each one of your employees felt the same way. Well, they can, and it all starts with you. You set the tone every day, and as a role model, you can inspire superior levels of performance by exhibiting your own superior effort. Officers eat last, and so should each one of you. Now, over the last 7 years, I've learned some important lessons that have really helped me cope with a truly life-altering situation. I know what I've gone through is on the extreme end of the spectrum, but what I've learned isn't. Just like I face challenges in my personal and professional lives, I'm sure at some point all of you have as well. And if you haven't yet, you will in the future. Lesson number 1. It's okay to ask for help and to lean on others for support. And I certainly know a lot about this. As I said, I'm only here today because of the Marines and the Navy corpsmen to my left and right in Iraq 7 years ago. When I was first injured, I was terribly embarrassed about what had happened. I didn't want to be back in the States. I wanted to be in Iraq leading my Marines, who, by the way, did just fine without me being there. I'm sure it's just because of my training, but they did okay. I was embarrassed. I didn't want any of my friends to come to the hospital. I viewed it as mission failure, which I know is wrong. It's a bad mentality. That's what I have. I didn't want help from anyone, which is silly because I was getting help from so many people. I just didn't realize how badly I was injured. I learned that was a wrong mentality. I learned it's okay to ask for help. I learned we should be asking for help when it's warranted, and I have no problem doing that now. This is a picture from a year after that initial surgery you saw. Now I probably had 25 surgeries or so. That first surgery you saw the earlier picture, which in the Constantine household we called pumpkin head. It's okay to joke about it. I'm still here. That surgery was 19 hours long. This surgery was a year later at Johns Hopkins University, and they took a bone out of my left leg, used it to reconstruct my upper jaw. After both of those surgeries, I was on a feeding tube for a long time, months. The doctor sent us home with hundreds of cans of Ensure, that protein drink, and I just went from a hole in my stomach up to a thing, and Dahlia would kind of joke and say, okay, do you want chocolate or strawberries, if I could taste it, as it went right here. So apparently I really like chocolate because I kept asking for that one. But I couldn't do anything on my own. I couldn't eat. I needed help getting dressed. washing myself. I would say I couldn't drive. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and then crutches for a long time, and so on. So I needed help completely along the way. Over the last 7 years, I've probably received help from a dozen different veterans groups, some of which you work with. Even today, I have to turn to Dahlia from time to time when I can't get certain images out of my mind. When Dahlia and I first identified that I had post-traumatic stress, it was hard for me to wrap my head around that. But I figured I could handle it one of two ways. I could go to an objective professional who has studied this is his job, he worked with other warriors, and I could get my feelings out on the table and try to understand why my body and mind were reacting this way. Or I could just take those feelings and bottle them up and push them down, deep down, and just kind of see what happened. Well, asking for help on this very personal topic has not only helped me individually, but now I've been asked by the VA and the Wounded Warrior Project and the Marine Corps to speak openly about post-traumatic stress in an effort to help other young veterans who are out there struggling with demons in their own minds. And just like all of you, I really enjoy helping other veterans. And I only got that opportunity because at one point I raised my own hand and said, I need some help. And take a second to think about it. Don't each of you enjoy helping each other? What do you do if someone comes to you with a problem? You probably stop whatever it is you're working on, put it aside, and focus on them and taking care of them, just like George Grant did for me when I needed it most in Iraq. Well, that's the type of reception you're going to get when you turn to a loved one or a trusted coworker, a good friend with your issue. There's no reason for any of us to go around dealing with these heavy topics all on our own when help is just a conversation away. And along those lines, I know that you work with and help a number of military nonprofit organizations. Groups like the Fisher House Foundation, Operation Homefront, the Armed Services YMCA, Team Red, White, and Blue, the Military Officers Association, and Carry the Load. I've also worked with most of these groups and have friends there as well. They're all great organizations. I'm pleased to see that they had the fortitude to ask you for help, and I'm really pleased to see that you've chosen to help them because, trust me, you're going to make a difference in a lot of lives just by helping them with their mission. Now, lesson number 2. Teamwork is critical for success, for you and for others around you. I know that in the hotel industry, you probably live and breathe teamwork, but I think sometimes we can forget just how important this concept really is. Whether you're playing on a sports team, patrolling with a squad of Marines, or putting together a conference that takes over a whole facility, you simply can't do it all by yourselves. Yesterday with the towel exercise, we heard the gentleman say several times, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And if you weren't pulling your weight and really striving for your team's success, are you practicing good teamwork? This is a picture I took of Colonel DeGrosse. I was literally on the sidelines at this important meeting. When we got to Iraq, we couldn't identify who the insurgents were and who the just regular local Iraqis were. And one reason that was a particular problem was in Iraq, it was normal and legal for the men to carry around a lot of heavy weaponry wherever they went. But we were getting attacked all the time, so it was a big problem. Colonel DeGrosse confiscated all those weapons until he determined that a particular area was safe enough to give those weapons back. But he didn't give those weapons back to the individuals. He gave them to these gentlemen. They're very important. They're called imams. They're the local religious leaders, and they really run those small villages. So it was critical that he have a good relationship with them. When he gave those weapons to imams, he really empowered them in the eyes of their constituents because they realized, well, okay, these are the folks who can get us to our weapons, and that was important to them. So I watched as Colonel DeGrosse created a team with his imams, which is very important for us because we just want to stabilize an area and move on to get to Ramadi where really all the bad action was going on. And it was particularly difficult because obviously they spoke Arabic, we spoke English. Yeah, we had translators, but there sure is a lot that gets lost in translation when you're having these discussions. But I watched him forge a team between himself and the imams, and so I learned a lot about teamwork just watching him take care of the people around him, both the local Iraqis and his Marines. Now, when I got to the Naval Hospital at Bethesda, my life was turned upside down and inside out, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the one person who held it all together for me was Dahlia. Now, back in 2006, Dahlia and I were not yet married yet. And I have to admit, Wayne invited Dahlia to come. She's a teacher, she's in third grade. She could only get one day off in conjunction with the weekend, so she couldn't make it. She's not happy with me that I'm having a great time here, but you know, that's okay. She couldn't make it, but I thought, you know, what kind of husband would I be if I talk about her and talk about our wedding and didn't show you at least one picture of that great day? Thank you. So, no comments about Beauty and the Beast. I already know all that. But Dahlia and I met early in 2006 in a Spanish immersion course in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Dahlia was there from California, and I was there from Virginia. We just happened to be in the same small class. There were only 4 of us. It was actually 3 women and me, so it was a tough learning environment. But Dahlia and I hit off the bat right away. We spent a lot of time together in Argentina and then dated that summer back in the States. Interestingly, when I deployed to Iraq in the fall, Dahlia left for England to pursue her PhD at Cambridge University. Unlike other wars, though, we were able to keep in touch almost every day through letters and care packages and email and the occasional satellite phone call. When I was initially airlifted out of Iraq, they took me to the military hospital in Landstuhl, Germany. Typically, service members don't get personal visits there because it's so far, unless it's really a worst-case scenario. But because Dahlia was in England, she was able to get there relatively easily. And she actually stayed at the Fisher House there, and they treated her like royalty. They treated her very well, and that's something I'm never going to forget. It's very important to me, obviously. Well, I was there for 4 days, and at that point, the doctor decided to send me on back to the States, to the military hospital in Bethesda, Maryland. At that point, Dahlia decided to leave her doctoral program to come be with me. Never mind that going to Cambridge University was a lifelong dream of hers. Never mind that Dahlia was from California and certainly didn't know anyone in Bethesda, Maryland. I don't even know if she'd heard of it before that. And never mind that at that point, the doctors still weren't sure if I was going to survive what happened to me. But when I woke up from my coma, Dahlia was there next to me. And every day since then, we've unconsciously practiced all the good tenets of teamwork, which is what it's taken for us to recover from really a tough situation. This is a picture from my Purple Heart ceremony. And typically the Purple Heart ceremony, whether it's in the hospital or later, the general will come and pin it on that service member's chest. I thought it was entirely appropriate for Dahlia to be up there next to me when he did that, because at that point it had become our injury and our recovery, because we were really a team in every aspect of the word. Lesson number 3, you are stronger than you think you are. In the Marine Corps, they train us very hard to be tough and efficient and extremely resilient. Physical and mental fitness is a part of everything we do. In fact, when I went to Officer Candidate School, I thought I was in really good shape. I had been playing competitive rugby for 10 years. I worked out all the time, the whole 9 yards. But I lost almost 20 pounds in just 10 weeks. It's not a diet plan I would really encourage, unless you like big guys screaming in your face the whole time, but it's not good. But I returned to Colorado in the law school a different person. If someone had talked to me about the workouts we were doing at the end of that 10 weeks, I probably would have said, I can't do that. In fact, I know I would have said, I can't do that. And similarly, 7 years ago, someone could have really adequately described what it's like to carry 65 pounds of protective armor, 2 weapons, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and Kevlar helmet, night vision goggles, and food and water, and all that, and to conduct long foot patrols, often 5 or 6 hours at a stretch, all in 100, 110, 115 degree heat. I may have said, I can't do that. But we are all stronger than we think we are, and we are all capable of doing amazing things. It's important to remember this if you're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month and it feels like your world is crashing down around you. The bottom line is if you dig deep, you're going to find resources that you may not have known you had before. We are all survivors. We have all overcome adversity of some sort. We have all fought our share of battles. But we've all gotten stronger and smarter and wiser and braver as a result of the challenges we've endured. Maybe not right away and maybe not very easily, but we've all bounced back from hard times and we've all learned that our spirit is stronger than anything that can threaten to break it. As Wayne said, the early reports about my injury were that I had been killed in action. When Corporal Grant first rolled me over, I was no longer breathing. So I know that life can be challenging and full of hardships. But trust me, life is beautiful and precious and sweet and something we should treasure, not just get through. Life is about celebration, not merely survival. So you need to turn challenges around and fight through them. I did, and everyone in this room and each one of your employees can do the same thing. I discussed this with Wayne, and I told him that I don't harbor any ill will towards that sniper who shot me. I was ready to do the same. He was doing his job, and I was doing mine. I let that go early on so I could focus on things that I can control and things that I care about today. Over the last 7 years, I've tried to learn or be a leader in my wounded warrior community and serve as a role model. That way, I'm making sure I motivate others around me, and I'm also pushing myself in the right direction. And I imagine at La Quinta, there are plenty of opportunities for each one of you to lead from the front on a daily basis. The bottom line is, life changes for better or worse. It all depends how you look at it. I choose the glass to be half full, not half empty, and I embrace change. I want to live life in the future, not the past. I've learned that through inner strength, humility, and a victorious spirit, we're each capable of overcoming the toughest obstacles. 2 years ago, with my speech impediment and my traumatic brain injury, I never would have imagined standing up in front of 1,100, 1,200, however many high fives we had yesterday. I never would have imagined that. So just imagine what each one of you and your teams can do when you really set your mind to it. Now we have a couple minutes left, and I want to take everything we discussed, especially about taking care of your people, to ensure they take care of you and add a new dimension to it. I want to specifically talk about veteran hiring. As I said, it's my understanding you're going to break through your goals for this year and you reach that 500 veteran and military spouse mark, which is going to be fantastic when you do. When we talk about today's veterans, especially those who have served after 9/11, we're talking about a veteran who signed a blank check to our country saying he or she was willing to pay whatever price necessary to ensure our way of living at home. One veteran who may never have deployed, or who may have deployed 8 times. One veteran who's been tested in the toughest work environment imaginable, but now can't find a career that really suits his or her skills and abilities. And of course, I'm talking about veterans here generically. I'm talking about military spouses because we're all part of the same team. We're all trying to move forward together. We all know that today's veterans coming out of the military bring with them a wide array of skills and abilities. Many have worked in a tech field, and almost all of them have served in a leadership capacity of some sort. They believe in the value of teamwork, but have been encouraged to take the initiative when it's appropriate. And they've all been given the power to make important decisions in the blink of an eye. All have been an important part of teams that have worked long hours to accomplish a mission and make sure that they get the job done before they quit. These veterans are going to show up for you on time, do exactly what you tell them, take the initiative if you want them to, and they're going to work and work and work until the job is done. But you don't need to just take my word for it. Last month, the First Lady was talking to a group of construction companies that had they just unrolled their veteran hiring initiative. They agreed to hire 100,000 veterans in the next 10 years. And you can read on the slide, this is what she said. You've done this because you know it's a smart thing you do for your businesses, because you know that America's military turns out some of the highest skilled, hardest working employees this country has ever seen. And she's exactly right. Just last year, Steve Schwartzen, who's the CEO of Blackstone, a private equity firm that actually owns Quinta, announced Blackstone's veteran hiring initiative, and I watched that announcement. He talked about the skills that our officers and non-commissioned officers bring to the table. He said they would fit in perfectly with a number of Blackstone companies in entry-level and supervisory positions, from security operations to janitorial service to the hotel restaurant industry. So Steve Schwartzen specifically mentioned hotel restaurant industry and jobs that would be a good fit for veterans, and I couldn't agree more. After World War II, many of our veterans came home to a booming economy, and because so many had been part of the war effort, they were able to relatively easily fully reintegrate back into society. After Vietnam, however, our soldiers were treated terribly, and that's still a stain on our nation's honor. Today, after Iraq and Afghanistan, we're called heroes and heralded at every turn. But it seems like we're still left out in the cold in one important aspect: good, sustainable careers where we can once again be productive members of society. I support our troops shouldn't just be a bumper sticker. We need your help, and so do our families. But more importantly, your business will benefit from hiring us because of our well-honed leadership skills, our character, our belief in teamwork and working together, and because we've proven we can accomplish a mission in high-pressure situations. I know your jobs can get pretty stressful. You work in a very competitive market. You have a lot of competitors out there who are all working hard to be number one. So I want to stress how important it is to keep a good sense of humor. As an example, not long after I was shot, and remember, I was deployed not as a lawyer, but with an infantry battalion. When I was in the hospital, my father said to me, and I guess he tried to sum up the universal feelings for lawyers, said, "See, Justin, even in Iraq, they know who the lawyers are." So, thanks, Dad. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say it's a real honor to be here spending time with Quinta. I've had a fantastic time. I'm motivated by the efforts you're making on behalf of our veterans, our wounded warriors, and our military spouses. I've had a great time here. I wish you the best of luck in 2014. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of you again. So again, thank you very much for inviting me here today. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What an incredible inspiration and story of selflessness. Justin, thank you for your service in honoring us by sharing your story this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another very special guest this morning, and I am proud to introduce Grammy Award winner Lee Greenwood.
Good morning. If tomorrow all the things were gone, worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Sing it! 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
Ladies and gentlemen, Lee Greenwood. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 2014 La Quinta Conference. We'll see you in Orlando next year.